Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, and we get the opportunity today to talk someone that has they got a really cool story of the life they've been through, what they've experienced. It's Felicia Romero, and Felicia's gone through this journey of her own life, her own success in business, and she's got to the point where she found some interesting spaces to create success for her life. And then she goes, you know what? I also want to be able to find ways to help other people do this. Because we all know that some of the best things in life are friends and people that give us insights to improve our chances at success. And so she has stepped into the realm of helping people do this in their online business, in their online world. And so she does this, but from grace and from joy. And I blast talking to her through all the different things. She's navigated her perspectives because, to be honest, I think a lot of us have inklings of what it means to be successful and ideas of what we could do to get to the next tier. But when you've got someone who's walked the walk, it makes it so much easier to shortcut that process. And she does that with heart and intention. And also, if you're a person that goes, I want to be able to have some focus, I want to be able to have the ability to get these things done that I learn in this podcast, then go to magicmind.co/shift or use the code AWSHIFT at magicmind.co. Reason being is, for me, I know that my ability to be successful as yours is all tied to how well we can focus and function. We can know what we're supposed to do, but actually doing it becomes the game changer. Those who can take information and rapidly translate it to action are the ones that succeed. And when you can't do that, you can't succeed at the same level or same pace. And so the separator is your brain. Can you focus? Can you be dialed in? And if you can't, you might want to get a helper. And that's what this all-natural product does. I am a personal example of what it can do in terms of how I can focus, get more done. And I started this whole thing by finding this company on my own, buying personally. Like, it just has been amazing. I just naturally found it. So I recommend it because I use it every day. And I've chosen to use it every single day on purpose. So go to magicmind.co/shift or use AWSHIFT at magicmind.co. All right, that's the end of the episode. Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, and we get to talk to successful people and find out how they make shift happen, which is, as life, it's all about doing things and having these Oz Shift unique moments that are good and bad and uncovering lessons we then apply to our lives. Today's guest is a person who has gone through many different navigational points of life through their journey. In fact, we were kind of joking beforehand that it's kind of like the female version of me, we'll call it, in aspects of the experience of life. Which is beautiful because I think that's what allows us to extract great lessons that we can apply to our lives, is usually by people who have run the race and are now going back and saying, hey, I crossed the finish line. Let me show you how to run that race differently or better than I did. So as we go through this today, take notes, like seriously take notes. I don't do it often, but I have a select set of questions I definitely want to get dialed in and we'll go through. But as you as a listener always knows, we have some fun questions that this person doesn't know about that we'll start with and weave in and open the conversation. So without further ado, please help me welcome to the show, Felicia Romero. How are you?
Oh my goodness, I am so excited, and I'm excited for these questions. Yes.
Hey, me too. You know what's funny is I've for the last 300, and I don't know how many episodes, I've always just kind of like, it started accidentally. I was like, I just want to talk to people. I want to have a reason to talk to cool people, you know? And so I started this podcast. And then we got to this point where, like, I've been winging it for so long. I've developed that skill, but then there's also things I'm like, if I gave that another 30 minutes of preparation and thought I can get some cool like ideas in. So I did that and I prepared for you so we could have some fun and dive.
Thank you.
That
Yes,
being said,
absolutely.
there's always one question we're going to start with, and we're going to let you talk a lot more than me. So here's the question. I'm walking around Arizona. I sit down at a coffee shop. You're sitting next to me. I don't know who you are, but you decide to turn and start talking to me. Why should I listen to you?
Ooh, that is a great question. Why should you listen to me? Well, first of all, I love meeting new people. So I would definitely be that person in the coffee shop talking to the person next to me. I'm not the one like down, not making eye contact. I'm literally, and this is honestly what I love. I teach people, businesses, how to be magnetic in line and in person. And so really, for me, if you were in a coffee shop, I think I would just ask you like, hey, what are you drinking? Like, what is it that, what do you enjoy? And I would think I would just start like that. But me, I don't love surface level conversations. So I think I would go deep really quickly. And so I don't know why you should listen to me. This is a tough question on the spot.
That's the point of
Because
it.
I'm interesting. I have an interesting story. I know we talked
Yeah.
about right before we jumped on the podcast.
Mhm.
I feel like I've lived 5 different lives.
Mhm.
But honestly, whenever I meet people, it's usually like, okay, like more not so much like I don't necessarily want to talk about myself. It's more what kind of value can I add to you? And
Yeah.
so kind of meeting where you're at. But yeah,
Okay.
that's like the tough question to be put on the spot.
Yeah, I always find that certain questions kind of fly out of me, and I found that that one seemed to be a great one. Weird story. At one point, my team and production team were like, "Hey, let's take out that question in the beginning of what it kind of seems odd." And then that very day, we got a review on the podcast, and it said, "I absolutely love the podcast. More importantly, specifically, I love the first question you ask."
Yeah.
I go, "We're
What
keeping
would
it
be
in."
your answer?
You know what? I think you should listen to me because I have a lot of weird things that may spark a thought in your mind that can hopefully change your life in some way. Or you get bored of me and walk out, but it's going to be an interesting conversation
Mm.
nonetheless.
Oh,
So,
you know what? I was at an event this last weekend. I spoke and I was at a group of ladies. I always make it a point to sit at a table where I don't know anybody,
right.
versus like, oh, I know those people. I know that friend. Like, I'm going to go somewhere that I don't know anyone and I'll sit
Yeah.
at that table.
Mhm.
And as I was sitting there at the table talking to these women, it's so natural for me. I think I have such a natural inclination to want to coach or mentor or inspire. And literally, this woman who I just had met
Yeah.
left the table saying, "Oh my gosh, you literally were my hype girl. Like, I feel like I can go do this thing now. Thank you so
Love
much
it.
for your knowledge and wisdom."
Yeah.
So maybe that is me. Maybe it's the person that is like pouring belief into you.
Yeah.
Seeing that little nudge of something in someone that's like, hey, you can go out and do that. I'm that
Yeah.
optimistic person that say like
We need
anything
that.
is possible.
The
So
world's
yeah, I
got
would
a long way
say
out.
I would say that.
It's a
Yeah.
solid one. I like it because the world has a need for that more than ever. It's funny. Just yesterday, I was at a coffee shop. My wife was doing some body work next door in this like kind of grouping of offices. Next door
Hmm.
was like a kind of a brand new workspace, and so I was like, "Hey, can I go over there and buy a coffee? Like, or sorry, tea. I don't drink coffee." And he goes, "Yeah, just head over and meet the guy." So I go and walk in. I'm just talking, and I did the same thing. I just interact and I join their conversation. It's a personal skill, right? And then at
Yeah.
some point, I left. Hey, nice meeting you guys. Take off. I get a text message, well, a DM through LinkedIn today from the guy. His name's Tim, and he goes, "Hey, I mentioned that I talked to you yesterday, and this is in a town, by the way, an hour and a half from me." He goes,
Yeah.
"Hey, I have a friend who knows you. They saw you speak at an event last year that they're at right
Hmm.
now, and
Hmm.
they said to say hi and they appreciate your work." And I'm like, "That's super small world." Of all these, because it's
Such
in
a
a
small world.
Florida event, it was nuts. But I'm like, that's the
Yeah,
beauty of it. Life is man, it's beautiful and small in that way. Now that
it
skill set,
is.
right? I'm gonna say skill set is not
Mhm.
developed easily, right? Something takes time. So do you mind taking me back to like the moments of life where you kind of look called odd shift moments that help you kind of build and create that skill set, or is it something that you were always talkative? Like where did this kind of weave into
Mm.
your life?
Ooh, I definitely was not always talkative. I was the kid in
Mm.
school that did not make eye contact with a teacher. Like I was sweating, like, please
Uh,
don't pick on me. I don't want to read this paragraph wrong. I was this
yeah,
in perpetual state of I don't want the attention or I don't want to be looked at or I don't want to do something wrong, right? I don't want that.
yeah,
I didn't want that. And so it didn't happen honestly until college. I don't believe that it's like kind of like the whole building confidence thing. I don't think that you have to be confident to show up, but I
yeah,
do think that showing up builds confidence. and
100%.
so and so for me, the first taste of that was doing something really scary in college. And so my path was going down a completely different path than it is now. I opened up my first gym at 22, but prior to that,
Yeah,
I was studying law. I have a bachelor's in
cool.
political science from Arizona State. I took my LSAT for law school and I got an internship my junior year of college where I beat out hundreds and hundreds of other students. And I got an opportunity to be an intern at the House of Representatives. And so it was
Wow.
like 12 of hundreds and hundreds. And so
Yeah,
part of that job, and again, this is like a terrified girl who did not want to speak in public, where every week I had to basically, I was assigned to two committees. I was part of the Commerce Committee and the Utilities and Municipalities Committee, and bills would come to me, and I would have to summarize those legislative bills, and then I would have to basically get in front of all the legislators and give my summary of that bill. And I had to speak in front of it. I think the first time I did, I remember I threw up. I was so scared, but
wow.
I did the scary thing. So I
Yeah,
wasn't confident. but I knew I had to show up. And through
Yeah.
that, built confidence. And this last weekend, I had the opportunity to speak on a stage with Jasmine Starr, and
Yeah.
Glennon Doyle
Yep.
was the keynote speaker. And
Wow.
I got that opportunity, not because I'm special, not because there's some sort of hierarchy, Anthony. It's because I choose to show up even when things are hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
I like that. That's beautiful because I think that's 100% in my opinion the way it works. Is most people are waiting for the emotion of confidence to then go do a confident thing, and it's
hmm,
actually the feedback right after doing the action that is courage based. I don't feel like
yeah,
doing this. It's scary. And then you go do it. And you go, oh wow, I can do this, and it leads to more and more. What did you do to prepare for that moment? Because that moment sounds like yeah, dive in. But my question like is I'm sure a lot of people might have is like, but you just dove in? Did you do some preparation
mm,
to give yourself a little bit of confidence? Like, what was the thing you did
yeah.
to jump into that moment that most people might be scared of?
That's such a good question. And the first thing that popped in my head, Anthony, was, yes, preparation is key. I was absolutely prepared. I had my notes. I had done all the research on that, but I also know that I don't know everything. And
Mm,
so I also know that being okay to fail, because you know that it's still a stepping stone to the next level. So like I remember being in front of all the legislators and not knowing an answer to a question. And instead of faking it till I made it, or thinking, trying to like come up with some sort of creative answer, I simply was like, I don't know, but I'm going to get back with you with the right answer. Right. So
yeah,
I think you have to also be okay with not knowing everything. And you also have to be okay with everything's not going to be perfect. I
yeah.
think if the moment that we wait for the perfect moment, the perfect time, the perfect feeling, it may never happen. Right. And so I think that's a great reminder for everyone out there too, is like, it's never the perfect time. You're never going to feel 100% ready. You can be as prepared as possible, but honestly, it may go down a whole other path. Another example, this last weekend, I
Mm.
sent in my slide. I actually scrapped my presentation 2 weeks
Oh,
before, or
really?
2 days before the actual event, because
I bet
I
they love
felt in
that.
my heart, yeah, I felt in my heart that I had a different message to give, but
Mm,
I did have some notes, some like guide, like things that I wanted to guide me along on a confidence monitor.
yeah.
Well, they didn't have my notes. They
Oh,
pulled out and I was like, where are my notes? They weren't there. So I had to actually, I had to just dig inside of like what I knew, because we
yeah.
talked about it before. I've lived it. I've lived my stories. I know how to talk about it. I know what I'm talking about because I've been through it. So even
Mhm.
though I, was a little freaked out, like right from the start, I'm like, you know what? I'm going with this because this is what life is. This is
Yeah.
what entrepreneurship is, right? It's the ebbs and flows. And so yeah, so it's like I was prepared for those moments, those key moments, Anthony, but there was also times where I just had to cultivate the self-trust and do it afraid and take the messy action.
I like that. Do it afraid. I'm gonna write that
Yeah.
down. Do it afraid. Because I've had those moments, right? I typically don't memorize my slides, but I have a structure where I don't need notes. I do this mind kind of memorizing thing, and so
Mm-hmm.
I don't. But I need the slides, and I need to know the next slide. If I don't know the next slide, it's problems. And I've gone to events where it's like, hey, AV, we're gonna be here 30 minutes. You're on. And they're like, oh, we don't have a confidence monitor. I'm like, oh, so I got to sit there and rote memorize these things real quick, and then at a certain point you go, I know my
Yeah.
story, and you just lean in, and then you actually, it's interesting. You find a deeper level of confidence. You go, "Oh, I could do
Yes.
that," you know? Uh,
Yeah.
here's a thought
Yes.
I have. I'd love you to think through it maybe in real time. Is there's things that we step into that are the immediate problems in front of us or scary things like we just talked about. And we face those and we go, man, I feel great. And then I stepped back at one point and said, but what is the fearful thing that I don't even see that could open up a greater door? Like the thing that
Mm.
I'm looking at this thing right in front of my face, not realizing there's something that's grander and greater and bigger 10 steps down. A lot of people get
Mhm.
stuck here. Like, have you ever had that thought? Maybe if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's the afraid. I honestly think it's almost the afraid to dream bigger, because we only know what we know. We only know what's in front of us. Also, I think we are also very used to making very realistic goals, the things like anytime I ask one of my clients like, "Hey, we talk about income. I love talking about money with my people, with
Good.
my women."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, what is that goal? Like, yeah, it's going to be more than the money, but let's just have fun with it. What is that money goal?" And 9 times out of 10, it's always a very realistic goal. Like they
Yeah.
know they can make it. They never want to think bigger, because I think for a lot of us, we are afraid to actually claim our desires. right?
Mm.
To claim our desires and to say, this is what I want. Number one, oh, well, what if someone thinks that I'm greedy because I want to make $1 million? Like, what are people going to
Yeah,
think of me?
true.
Oh, like I can't do that because there's already a lot of people doing that. So that's not even a realistic goal for me. I think it's so easy to go into the limiting belief of not dreaming bigger because we're afraid of failure. We're afraid to let ourselves down and we don't think it's possible for us. And so that's why I love masterminds. I'm a part of a mastermind. I host a mastermind.
Same.
I am in there with women that are doing some big things. And guess what I feel when I'm in there? I feel like I can do it too. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to dream a little bit bigger. I actually have a personal client. She's in our mastermind, and she was at an event a couple weeks ago, and she had messaged me. She had a breakthrough. She got asked to speak on a stage. She was on a panel, and she's like, Felicia, after being on the stage and hearing all of these other women's stories, she said, I realized that I've been thinking too small.
Yeah.
I've been,
Yeah.
putting myself in this little box and not allowing myself to dream bigger. And you're going to have coaches, you're going to have mentors, you're going to be maybe listening to a podcast or have a book, but when it happens, it's like you have this feeling where you're like, oh, I am meant for more and I'm absolutely safe and it's okay to go after that. Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think we get stuck in the limiting belief, Anthony. I think we
We
get
do.
stuck in just setting those goals. And I think sometimes too, for a lot of us, it's hard to set the bigger goal or see the bigger picture or go after the bigger thing because we don't have proof yet. We don't see it yet. For a lot
Yeah.
of us, we want to see the whole staircase. What's going to happen on, staircase number 25 when actually we just need to take the first two steps. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
100%. I like that. That's very well said. It really, it's one of those things where, yeah, we don't, I think because we lack the proof, our proof to our mind is we can't do it. It's like, yeah, well,
Mhm.
no, that's not 100% what it is. And we do a
Mhm.
really good job of seeing the negative aspects and areas of our pitfalls. We don't go, "Oh, I have a
Yeah.
strength here." And I
Yeah.
wonder, because you say that idea of claiming, I wrote this down, claim my desire. It is interesting that, like, I'm in the same thing. I have amazing friend groups and masterminds, and I run one. And it's funny. It's like the group you're in elevates your level of perception.
Mm.
100% does, because when I have this desire, if I'm in a smaller group or people that may look at me like I'm being, let's say, I don't know, maybe audacious, or I'm being a little bit, kind of arrogant. It's like, no, this group goes, no, great, great job. Like, hey, make
Yeah.
more. You got that. You could do more. Like, and you got to be around that group, because if you don't, you'll stay in this comfort zone of not wanting to be
Yeah.
alienated from this current group.
Oh, for sure. And so much if you're around those people who don't believe in your dream or aren't doing, you know, three steps ahead of you sort of dreams, what's going to happen is they're going to look at you like you're crazy, right?
Mhm.
And they're going to try to talk you out of it until it's actually popular to like you, right?
Yeah,
Because
for
once
sure.
they see it working, they're going to be like, oh wow, like they're going to be excited. But they
Yeah,
like for a lot of people, it's not popular until other people see that it's popular as well, right? And
yeah.
so like a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're going at this alone many
Mhm.
times in the beginning, right? Until you find your people, you find the network. But for a lot of, especially women, I don't know how it is for men. Sometimes
Same.
it's really hard for women to find women that are collaborative and not in competition.
Mhm.
For a lot of women, they have deep sister wounds, sister
Yeah,
wounds meaning, they've been screwed over by friends or
friends. Yeah,
family or
friends. Yeah,
females, whatever. And so like there's that lack of trust there too. So I think it's
yeah.
so important to surround yourself with those people who are going to support you, are going to not be, threatened by you shining bright, and also want to collaborate with you as well.
That's a big piece of it. And when we have the same
Yeah.
thing, I think men do. I think
Yeah.
nowadays a grander conversation and a lot more of a movement in the aspect of men's support, which is
Hmm.
beautiful to see, right? It's a necessity. But you
Hmm.
still can be in the wrong groups, right? And you still have to find people that fan the flame, not blow it out. And I think if you can do
Yeah.
that, and I think it's a matter of stepping into a room uncomfortable, going like, I
Mm.
am the low totem pole here. Let me soak it up and find a way to benefit. And if you can come to that group with one thing that's different than everybody else, I heard somebody say something yesterday. They're like, join a group where you feel uncomfortable because people are doing amazing things, but find the
Yeah.
thing that no one else does but you. Call each person and go,
Mhm.
hey, I'd love to hop on a phone call and break this thing down and help you in this area, that one area. And now everybody who's awesome and amazing, you now have the ability to take their knowledge because you've helped them in something that they're great at. And they're obviously
Mhm.
amazing at their thing. And it blends you into the group where you feel more comfortable and part of it.
Mhm. I love that so much. And I would love to know if you ever experience any of this. I was in a mastermind last year, and all these women are just doing amazing things in their business and their lives. And, come to find out at the end of the year, because the host of the mastermind, she was really open and honest. And she's like, if there was a lot of women in this group who triggered each other. and not triggered each other in a bad way, like, oh, like I don't like her, more
Yeah.
of like, oh, she's doing better than me, or
Yeah.
she's making more money than me, or we joined this thing at the same time and she's just like taken off. Do you
Yeah.
ever deal with triggers like that with men? Like, do you guys trigger each other at all? Like, when I say trigger, it's like this thing, right? We have like, oh, I see this person as inspiring, or I see this person as like, I'm jealous of this person, right? So
Yeah.
that that
Yeah.
that shadow side of you. Do you ever experience any of
Oh,
that?
yeah, man, that dark energy comes out. I
Yeah.
think it's a natural competitive feeling, and men are more, in my
Yeah.
opinion, more competitive typically, not even in
Yeah.
all the best ways, it's just we gotta win, and maybe it's
Yeah.
because of the way society grows us or just innate, I don't know. But there is a desire
Hmm.
for competition, and you actually have to get to a point, in my opinion, where you sit back and go, "What am I competing for?" And then when we're competing for that
Mm-hmm.
guy's finish line, and I don't want his finish line, I go, "I wasted time," and then I double back and go, "You idiot, how are you?" So I'm
Yeah.
big on like Anthony. I set my own scale. I have my own
Yeah.
realm. I can celebrate you because I know another thing is you
Yeah.
can't do me in any way better than I can do me. Only I can do
Oh, I
me,
love
man.
that.
So you can do what you
Yes. I think
do.
when we realize that,
Yeah,
that's powerful right there, right? Like, I think I like to use triggers as a way to not see it as a negative thing, but I use it as a way of like, oh, she has what I want, right?
yeah,
Or he has what I want. And it's like, I want to aspire to be that way.
yeah,
I want to, I love the way, like for instance, women who were really strong in their boundaries used to really trigger me, including one of my mentors that I have. Like,
sure.
very strong in boundaries. Like when we joined the group, like she's sending out messages in Voxer. By the way, don't send me a Voxer after 4 p.m. I don't check it on Tuesday. She's saying it lovingly, right? But
Yeah,
and if you send a longer than a 2 minute Voxer, I'm speed it up. Try to keep it under 2 minutes, right?
yeah,
And that like triggered me a little bit, right? Like,
mm,
oh, but the only reason it triggered me, Anthony, is because I'm not setting strong boundaries in my life,
mm.
right?
Mirror.
Clients are taking advantage of time, and it's not their fault. It's my fault for not being strong and stating and communicating with clients. And so like I have stronger boundaries in my coaching business and my friendships and my relationships.
Have to.
But that mentor, her name's Stephanie, she modeled that for me. But at
Yeah,
first, it was kind of a trigger for me. I'm like,
yeah.
gosh, she's really like bossy or
Right.
whatever, whatever.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, I get to like reflect, like I need to set stronger boundaries in my
yeah,
life. So
yeah.
I think triggers can really tell you a lot and help you as well.
Yeah, I believe that like what you're saying is 100% truth, and it's awesome to watch it in real life at this point now, knowing what you're talking about, because I think what it does is when you elevate yourself to a better room, and by
Mm-hmm.
better, whatever term you want to use is better, right? Could be more money, more peace, more joy, more connectivity. They do whatever it is. That better room, you're going to step into the room, and something's going to trigger you like that in a way, not because it's bad, but because it's like a fish out of water. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to put into words. The When I sit in a new room that's at a higher, the hearing the conversation, it is usually so far above my head that I'm like, I start questioning, should I be here? Should I leave? Okay, don't say anything. What are you doing? You're an idiot. Hope they don't call on you. Hope they don't call on you. And it trigger, and you start having this conversation. It's like it should feel like that. It 100%
Mm-hmm.
should feel like that, because now what happens is you get access to a level of understanding you didn't know was there, and now you go, okay, that's what I should be looking towards. It almost, if you look at it, could be a freeing experience, because most of us want to work, but we don't want to work in the wrong direction. But now I can go, oh, that's the direction. Okay, get rid of that dude. Like, don't feel all bad. Let's go to
Mm-hmm.
work now and go
I
for it.
love this. This is my favorite type of conversation. I think your human awareness is one of the most important things that you can really cultivate. And as you get older and as you are aware of your habits, you're aware of your limitations, you're aware of the things that come up for you. For instance, entrepreneurship, you might have a lot of, and we're going to take wellness, for instance, because I know you're in the fitness world. So you
Yeah,
probably have a lot of men, women that listen to you that want to better their health and want to make more money and, go after their dreams, right? That's your audience. So,
yeah,
anytime, we are up against the wall with our wellness and you see yourself, it's like, okay, subconsciously you're doing the thing. Okay. You keep going back to what you were doing before. And
mhm,
most people aren't aware of it. They just think, well, this isn't the right diet for me, quote
yeah,
unquote. So I need to
yeah,
do another diet. I need to
mhm,
hire another coach. I need to do more, or I need to do something different. No, actuality, you can have the perfect diet plan, fitness plan, wellness plan, the best coach on the planet. But if you are not good in your head and your heart, you
mhm,
are not going to see the results you want. And it first
yeah,
starts with awareness of why you're doing the thing. Why do you keep self-sabotaging? Whenever you're up against something that's kind of hard, do you retreat? It's like, can we lean into the hard, right?
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people who don't have the awareness, they can't lean into the hard. They're not aware of the binge eating tendencies or the self sabotage because they haven't dealt with it yet deep down inside. And that is the
Mhm.
first step in any change, whether you want to make more money in your life, whether you want to have, the like your health and wellness, whether you want better relationships. You have to be aware of
Mhm.
your habits and tendencies and why you're doing what you're doing. And
I
that, I
agree.
think that is like your like my life journey anyways, is like just continuing to work on my awareness. When my partner, I'm engaged, when there's like a red flag or something triggers me, I retreat into me. I used to, you, what are you not doing? What are you not giving me? And now it's like, oh, wait, Felicia, like, let's come back to you because you're not like always right, or you're not so it's important. That self-awareness is super important.
I agree, because the thing is, if not, then what the far side of that is I'm unaware, but I'm still doing things. I do things that are the wrong things, and I beat myself up, and I'm horrible, and I'm not good enough, and I don't claim what I desire, right? So it's this negative
Mm-hmm.
kind of pathway. Whereas if you can go, I'm aware of this, it's usually going to hurt to find out aware. There's a statement I love, and it goes, "It's hard to see the label when you're inside of the jar." And so a lot
Yeah.
of us are unaware of that label. So we're in our little jar doing our thing and go, why don't I make no money? It's like, hey, here's why. And if you can't see it, typically what it is somebody else comes in and says, or does, like you talked about with this boundary, they say, hey, you need to work on this. And we go, oh, I don't want to hear that. My ego rears up and I step away. And now I'm battling when if I just submitted to like, okay, I get that. I don't like to hear it, but now I can work on it. Now the world opens up. And this is what you've done, because at 22, you opened your gym, you ran it for 12 years, you've sold this thing, you're helping thousands of people online do all their cool stuff. That did
Mm-hmm.
not come without this exact journey we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there's been so many journeys along the way. I mean, I competed. I was an IFBB figure pro. So,
Oh, hey, I see it.
yeah. So for the audience who may not know, think like Arnold Schwarzenegger and like the Super Bowl of what I did the Olympia every year, placed top 4 in the world at one point.
Wow.
I've
Awesome.
had, I've had 8 magazine covers, from Muscle and Fitness, Hers to Flex Magazine to Oxygen. So, I look at my 20s now and I look back, gosh, and I was just so insecure and just so like not really knowing myself, but did things because I needed the validation,
Yeah.
And it's not until I got into my 30s, and now I just turned 40 this year, is when I realized, oh, okay, that's why I went through those certain things, and that's why I had that experience. And so I have lived all of these different lives, but it's been a lot of life lessons. And honestly, I truly feel, and I just spoke at an event, like I mentioned, this last weekend, and I talked about this. And I took my mom to, I spoke 2 weekends in a row at 2 different speaking conferences. And the first one, I took my mom because I love having my mom in the audience. I used her a lot in my examples. And she, after we were driving home, she's like, Felicia, that was so good. You did awesome. But
Yeah, it's cool.
you shared a lot of your highlight reels. You didn't
Mhm.
share a lot of the struggle. And that
Right.
really got me thinking. And that's where the vulnerability really sits with people, is when you share your struggle, and when you share, obviously you're overcome too, you're not living in the struggle. People see you as more relatable, yes, but they also feel you. You evoke this emotion. And so the following weekend, I shared more of the failures. And I truly feel like my, my success has not made me unstoppable. It is my failures that
Mm.
have.
Yeah.
Because who are you? What kind of person are you? Who are you being when things are not working out for you? Who are you being when the business isn't working, or your relationship isn't working, or you're feeling really low? Like, who are you at that point, right?
Mhm.
And so, it's one of those things, like, it's who you're being now for who you want to be then. So the actions and the things that I'm doing at this moment, I think James Clear might say this for Atomic Habits, like your habits, you have to show up like the runner you want to be, like the millionaire you want to be. What
Mhm.
kind of things are you, what kind of decisions are you making at this moment that your $1 million self would make,
Yeah.
right? And so like we forget that a lot of times. And so
Mhm.
but yeah, so
Gotta be
it's
there.
my failures. My failures have made me unstoppable, because every
100%.
single time I've had a failure, it's only allowed me to get up that much quicker and to become more resilient, and to know like, oh, well, this is going to happen. I think I read a stat. I forgot what book it was in. It'll come to me. But they
Don't
said,
worry.
people who have made millions of dollars, who have also lost all of it, are 90% more likely to make that money back. You know why? Because they have the edge. They know how to make $1 million. And they know what it takes to make that because their financial thermostat has increased to that level. They know how to
Yeah.
make the money. Even
Yeah.
if they've lost it, they have the tools, they
All of
have
it.
the resources. So for those
Yeah.
listening right now who maybe feel stuck, you just don't have the tools yet, right?
Yeah.
You just don't have the knowledge, the tool set that's going to get you there. And that's
Yeah.
why personal development is so important, and continuing to like listen to podcasts like this and read
Yeah.
books and hire mentors,
All
because
of
it's
it.
going to help get you there.
It is. It's the only pathway to get there, and it's true.
Yeah.
James Clear's big on habits, atomic habits, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually big on identity. What you're outlining is where I guess his work stops, which is the habits
Mm-hmm.
create the human being you are. And
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about is, yes, 100% those people are more likely to make a million. That's why there's that one video. I have no idea who said it. It's a older gentleman. He says the first million is hard. The second million is inevitable, because it's not about what you have to do to make the million. It's about who you become, the character, the
Mm-hmm.
personality, the wherewithal, the knowledge that allows you to do the thing that makes the $1 million. Then once you're doing that thing, you've become that. It's just going to keep on happening like second nature. And people go, oh, they're
Mm-hmm.
special. They're not special, man. All they did was go, yeah, that hurt. But I learned something. Let me go apply
Mm-hmm.
this lesson. People go, you crazy? You just failed at that. Yeah, I failed at it, but not because I wanted to fail, because I tried my hardest in the wrong direction, but I got a new lesson. I'm not going in
Mm-hmm.
there with blind. I got this new backpack tool, and you might fail a couple times, but it's that journey of, I believe, identifying with the effort and not just the outcome that
Mm-hmm.
changes a person's perspective in their life and time.
That is powerful. Yeah, Elon Musk, for instance, I was listening to, I forget what podcast. He actually, he's building this big SpaceX and,
Yeah,
these rockets. And
going to Mars.
he's like, I actually want to fail. He's like, because I know it's going to happen. He said, I've gone through 15 rockets now, but it's only because it's making the rockets better each and
Every
every
time.
time. Right. So like, it's like he embraces the failure because he knows that that's what it needs to, in
Yeah,
order for it to be great.
yeah,
And then if you've ever read The Big Leap, right? So like The Big Leap, Gay Hendricks, love that book. I literally read it every single year. And it's so perfect for someone who is a little lost right now and just really don't know their zones of genius and don't know, that path to take. But he also says in that book, I think it's 70% of lottery winners end up losing all of the money within 3 years of
yeah.
winning the lottery.
Yeah,
And
weird.
again, back to identity, back to
Yeah,
who you're being, they can't handle that sort of wealth accumulation, of windfall of wealth, because they are not operating uh, as a person who has that sort of wealth. They're still
yeah,
operating as whatever they were before,
yeah,
right? So they lose it. They don't know the
yeah,
kind of decisions to make in order to keep it and make more of it, right?
yeah.
And so like I found that so interesting.
I even agree. Like I in the work I do, that exact same. I'm loving this because your brain's in my place, and I like that. But I look at it and go, well, the reason that a lot of them do lose is because they identify as something lower, and every day
Mm-hmm.
they open that bank account, they look at that and go, that's not who I am, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable here. So as opposed to elevating myself and raising my standards, I go, how do I get there? It's quicker. Just let's just spend this money till I get back down to my comfort zone, and they do it
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I say I just found out somebody won the $103 billion whatever it is thing, and it's like it's split by two people. Like if I was to do what I had to do to build a business that made me 103 billion or whatever it was, or I think it's 103 million, there's no way I'm losing that money. There's no way. Like I worked for this, I slaved for this. But somebody who just got it given to them, it's like not much sacrifice. It's free, and like we run around, and then I go, I don't feel comfortable. There's too many zeros. How do I get this down? And I think we guide ourselves subconsciously down there, unfortunately.
That's a good one. It's the money mindset, right? It's like that subconscious, I need to spend it, right? How many people, I know so many women in my world, coaches that I work with that are like, Felicia, I'm making money, but I don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. And I'm like, you're
Yeah,
spending it
yeah,
faster than you're making it. Like,
yeah,
what's going on? And it's this whole subconscious feeling of like what they have around money, like, oh, the money stories, or what are people gonna think of me? I grew up this way. Oh, if I want more money, this means I'm this sort of way. Or,
yeah,
if I don't hold on to it, it's gonna go in some other way, right?
yeah,
Or for a lot of people, especially women, we spend money because we're filling a void, right? Let me
yeah.
shop more because I want to feel something. And
Mhm.
so like these are all, again, back to awareness,
100%.
awareness of who you're being, of how you're operating, the kind of decisions that you're making, even down to, how you spend your free time. Even for me, like clothes make me feel a certain way. Like before I even like do a master class or a workshop or show up, I'm like putting something high vibe on. I'm
Yeah,
maybe putting on
totally.
some lipstick. I'm listening to music. Like
Yeah,
this all affects my energy and how
yeah.
I show up in my world.
Yeah, that's Jerry Rice, man. Look good, feel good, play good, get paid good,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of the whole thing.
Yes. Yes.
It's a human dynamic, and I think people like I at this point, I'm wearing like slippers below this because I'm just like up here we're good up top, but I got to this
Yeah.
point of
Yeah.
like I set my own scale. I don't like to borrow the world scale because it's so vast. There's people that have so much
Mhm.
more and so much more money, and where if I ever put something out and I was borrowing the world scale, it would always come back with you didn't do enough, and my
Mm.
effort would feel lackluster. And I go, I don't want to feel that way.
Mhm.
What do I do? And I go, how about I sit in quiet and figure out what I want from my life, what matters for me, who do I want to identify as? And it should scare me. It should be a push, and it should be out of that comfort zone, right? And I'll enlist other people to give me some thoughts that scare me, like make my butt pucker a little bit. But
Mhm.
then I go, okay,
Mhm.
cool. That's what I'm shooting for. And then when I shoot for
Mm.
that, I'm always proud. I'm happy, and I can still ascend to more. But I will never feel less than because I didn't have this arbitrary goal and destination.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I personally, for me, I have eliminated timelines. I don't give myself
Smart.
timelines anymore. Like, oh, I
Mhm.
have to be at this certain place at this certain time, because what I've been through in my own journey these last couple of years is it only caused more yearning and wanting. The thing, I always was in a place of lack, this
Yeah.
scarcity lack, like, oh, it's not
Yeah.
enough. It's not enough. Right. And so, yeah, I'm like, you know what? I'm just surrendering. I'm going to surrender to whatever my life is supposed to look like. I'm going to do the things that really light me up, that I'm happy and that get me excited. But
Mhm.
I'm just going to release the timeline that certain things have to look a certain way at a certain time, or I
Yeah.
have to make this amount of money within a 30-day time period, or I have to start this thing. Like, I just release all of that, because again, it leaves room for miracles as well, right? And
Oh, I
sometimes too,
like
when we
that.
put timelines on ourselves, sometimes it limits us. Like,
Yeah.
well, who's to say it's going to take me 2 years to be a millionaire, when actually
Well,
it could
there you go.
be a year? Like, why
Yeah.
am I limiting myself? So yeah, I've released the timelines.
I like that. Yeah. I'm a man of faith, and I had this statement that came at me randomly, and I live by it. I go, I don't want to mess up the plan with my plan.
That's good.
I let it all
Yes.
ride, man. Let the world bring what it brings, and then some's good, some's
Yeah.
not so good. But I navigate it and I push through, and I think it's the beauty of living a life. It's always the
Ah,
experiences that create our perspective, our
100%.
friendships, our growth, our income, all that kind of stuff. I'd love to lean into what you do, right? Because this is a beautiful conversation, I think, for everybody, which is awesome. But you are a person that takes this and says, I want to implant this in other people. Now, you could do it
Mhm.
for probably multiple different people in different walks, but you have chosen to help individuals who want to be coaches in the online space in fitness
Mhm.
primarily, and be able to take their heart and their skill set and create a change for someone else's life, and also survival and what's called thriving in their own life financially, freedom wise, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that do this, and I'd love to know, like, what is the unique sauce or special part about you that makes it like this thing that is different from everybody else when you show up to help somebody enter that new space?
That's powerful. Yeah, I decided that I really wanted to help wellness fitness coaches because I was in that space for so long, and coming from someone who has got their car repossessed,
Ooh,
literally was scraping by, was never thriving, was in the trading time for money, and didn't really have a plan for legacy wealth and generational wealth. I just kind of, I got to make sure my bills are paid by the end of the month, right? And so, like, when I sold my last gym in 2017, and I started getting a lot of questions from wellness fitness coaches, like, hey, how did you build a business? Like, teach me. And I actually
yeah,
spent a couple of years building an online fitness business. I still actually have a fitness business. I do a lot of corporate wellness here in the Valley.
mhm,
But yeah, I was just getting a lot of those questions. And I think something that I really wanted fitness coaches to realize is that they're more than just a fitness coach or a coach. Like, they can be the CEO of their business and
mhm,
their life,
yeah,
right? They can think bigger and really getting out of the mind frame of that trading time for money. So
yeah,
what I teach wellness coaches is to really hone in and align with their core values, because core values is such an important thing for me. I think so many of us create because we see others doing the thing. So we're like, oh, I got to do that too. Oh, I should
yeah,
create a 12-week program, or I should
yeah,
create a fat loss program. Like, maybe you don't even really want to do that. Like, what is it that you really love to do? And I bring it back to core values. All
yeah,
the businesses that I create come down to the five things that I love, which is connection,
mhm,
community, wealth, freedom, and fun. If I'm not having fun doing it, then I don't want to do it. If I'm not connecting with humans, like having these sorts of conversations, Anthony, like, I get lit up by these conversations. And those are the kinds of connections that I want with women. Community. So being supported and being around like minded women. So that's why I created a mastermind, right? And
yeah,
so, like, the possibilities are endless. So what I really teach these coaches how to do is align with their core values, make
Mhm.
sure that their business model aligns with their lifestyle, and building a life, instead of building a life around your business, building a business around your life, right?
Yeah,
And so like I'm really adamant about that. And then I teach coaches how to sell one thing,
that's
create the
smart.
one signature program,
Yeah.
get to a certain amount, and then you can branch off. But honestly, you can create multiple six figures selling one unique signature program and get really good at that, and then you can branch off. But yeah, that's really what I specialize in.
I like that. And it's smart. I think there's the one thing is like a book, right? But it's also a concept. And
Yeah.
most people may hear that and go, one thing, but I can do all these things. And I go, yeah, you probably could do all those things. But the
Mhm.
stacking of skill sets and things you have to know to sell multiple things, you're
Mhm.
not going to learn if you're selling multiple things. You need to
Yeah.
dial in one area, learn this
Mhm.
aspect of how do I do lead gen this way and
Mhm.
optimize that and maximize. How do I do follow up? How do I nurture? How do I do sales? How do I do offer? How do I deliver this thing? Then you start having
Mhm.
all these experiences. We talked about failures along the way. So the client says,
Mhm.
"Hey, I want my money back. I don't like this." Like it happens, right? And you got to eat
Mhm.
that. You go, "Ooh," but if you look at it and go, "Look, I apologize. Hey, I'm giving your money back. Do you mind if I just have an exit call with you? I would love to know what took place." So these little
Mhm.
moments, you can lean back in, and then yes, you get to the end and go, "Hey, I'm making six figures a year doing this. Like maybe I add that little next thing, but you're not doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You got
Oh,
some
for
room."
sure. You know what? People give up so easily.
Yeah, they
They
do.
have one failed launch, or they put out a post and like, no one liked this. I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? Get a better problem, because that's not a problem,
It's not.
right? Get a better, because that's not a problem. That you are a business owner. So in order for you to be a leader, you take the trial and errors and you make it better.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I really want them to focus on that one thing, at least for a year, maybe longer, or until they hit like a certain number in income, is because most people are always on to the next. Oh, this didn't work. Oh, I must be in the wrong niche.
Rebuild,
Let me
retreat.
switch my niche.
Yeah.
Oh, this program must be wrong. Let me switch the whole program. Well, no, you just didn't give it enough time.
Mhm.
I love the book, what is it, $100 Million Offers by Alex
Oh,
Ramosi.
it's a great one.
And he talks about this so much. It's like we give up so quickly on our dream. We give up because of one obstacle, because of one little hiccup. And
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is a series of hiccups, a series of trial and error. So we
Always
have
will.
to be able to have this like non-emotional attachment to it.
Yeah,
Actually, this is back to the surrender.
please do.
Completely detach from the
Mhm.
outcome. Just
Yeah,
stay committed to the process.
I
Commit,
agree.
and you'll see magic happen.
Yeah, it's I literally tell people I at this point people go, "How do you do so many things and create so much stuff?" And I go, "Man, I am a person who identifies with the effort." Like when I played football, I mean, I was one of the best in the world, played in the NFL, right? But then you still are not perfect. Every day you watch film and every day you're
Mhm.
like, hey, you messed up here, messed up here, messed up here, right? Doesn't mean I'm a horrible player. But the idea is when I enter these things, I go, hey, I'm just going to identify with the effort of getting better. Because if I identify with the
Mhm.
outcome, today I was a horrible player. I didn't make plays. I
Mhm.
missed whatever, right? And then I would tank. I'd go downhill and go, I don't want to do this, right? And it's pulling teeth for your emotions to get back in. But if I go, no, 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 I'm the guy that gives the effort to fix it. Right now, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
what you direct that towards. You could be the best popcorn maker in the world, right? But you're going to direct the effort and like doing the things that it takes to get great and identifying
Mhm.
with that. And then it becomes a game changer and you do cool things. So for you, you've done
Mhm.
this, right? You've built this thing. Why is it important for you to have people go online? Because obviously it's kind of the primary base. You still do some in-person stuff.
Mhm.
I just have my own thoughts around this. I had a gym. I sold it in 2018, right before the pandemic, thankfully.
Yeah.
Ended
We
up selling
sold
it real.
around the same time.
Oh, beautiful, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's God's plan, I guess you can call it that. But I don't even do fitness anymore. Interestingly, I do all this other
Yeah.
stuff. But the
Yeah.
online space for me is a certain place in my heart, and I have a guy that I actually employ. Won't call him employ, but I hire him to write my programs, even though I used to own a gym and he used to be my
Yeah.
employee. Why is it important or unique for someone to either transition or at least add online to their repertoire?
Mm, Anthony, the online space is not going anywhere,
Mm,
right? One of the things that really hold people back is, oh, it's so saturated. There's so many people
yeah, it's
online.
not.
Well, yeah, but like we talked about before, you are you.
Hmm.
People are attracted to you for a reason. You have a following, you have, whether it's 100 people or a million people, there are people still following you. And I think a lot of times we like to overcomplicate it, but the online industry, especially the online coaching industry, by 2023, I think I read it's going to be like a $423 billion industry.
Mm,
By I think I
wow.
heard Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi say that,
Yeah.
and it's not going anywhere. And
That's
it's like, there are so, why try to resist when you can just adapt? And that's again, entrepreneurship.
mhm,
Entrepreneurship is being flexible. What do you think all those business owners did during the pandemic who were in person? They got flexible
very much
because there
so.
was something going on in the world. So there were so many online or in-person coaches that are like, well, I guess I have to create that online business now, right? And that maybe do something hybrid. And that's what we do. We adapt, we become flexible. And also, I think changing our perspective. So a lot of times when people think online, they think Instagram, TikTok, social media, reels, and
Mhm.
dancing and pointing and all the things. You don't have to be like everyone else.
No, you do
You
not.
can create content however you want to create content. But if you're not creating, and if you don't want to create, and I think Jasmine Star says this, don't be upset by the results you
Results.
don't get by the work you didn't do, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Because it really is, you can change your perspective. There are so many ways to connect with humans. We have this amazing app, this amazing ability to connect with humans all
Yeah.
around the world, all
Mhm.
around the world. And that little switch in perspective of, gosh, let me see how I can serve someone today versus, oh, what are people going to think? Like,
Yeah.
get out of your head and into your
Yeah.
heart and start just showing up and serving and helping people, because that one person might see your post. I might see a post by you, Anthony, and be like, damn, that
That's
just
my person.
completely changed my head today. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad I saw that. Like, I needed that push today.
That's what it
Um,
is.
and yeah, it's all about perspective. It's
I agree.
perspective, really.
It
If
is.
you
It's huge.
go if you go towards, if you think of social media or you think of online businesses or online coaching in a negative way, then it's going to come back in a negative way,
Yeah,
right?
the
But if you
energy will
go
come
out
back
there with
different.
love and with service and with value, it's going to come back that way twofold. So I think it's
Sure.
all about perspective.
Yeah, and I think there's also that feeling of people going, I don't want to go out there and stumble and fail and look bad because I'm a
Mm,
fitness trainer. And I've noticed going back to your same one person, like one product, it's usually one person too. And you
mhm,
have to get to a point where you realize that until you vulnerably share and talk to that one single person, counting out
mhm,
everybody else you probably could help, talk to the one person. If they don't know you enough to love you, you're
mhm.
never going to have it. And the only way they actually will do that is if you share enough for people to hate you. Sounds weird, but,
Yeah.
like, I gotta share enough so somebody goes,
Yeah.
"It's not my person, I don't like you," and somebody goes, "That's
Yeah.
cool, they're mine," right?
Yeah.
But you gotta do that, and I think that's a fear people have is, like, so they just I
Oh,
wanna please everybody.
for
Like,
sure. You're
no,
not going to be for everyone. You will not be for everyone. Like, for instance, let's say, let's take coffee, for instance, coffee and tea.
I
I
don't drink
love
coffee.
coffee.
I
I
hate it.
love
I hate
coffee.
it.
You don't like coffee.
I don't
I
like
love
tea.
coffee, and I have it right here, right? And so you don't like coffee. I like coffee. Is coffee bad? Like, do we
No.
hate? Do we like talk bad about? No, it's just like it's not your thing. So I think you're not gonna love, and not everyone's gonna love you.
Mhm.
This made me think about something too. Um, you know, I remember showing up and doing the thing online, and back then it was like Facebook. I remember showing up, talking, doing lives, all the things, and no one was watching. No one.
Yeah,
No one
really
was
does be
watching.
there.
No one was liking my stuff. Everyone started that way. And that brings me back to, who are you when no one is watching? Are
Mhm.
you still putting in the work? And this is where the purpose and your passion comes in. It's like, can you still do this thing when no one is clapping for you?
Yeah,
Can you still do the thing when you show up and no one is there in the audience? It's like, because if you stay committed to it, you're going to be a year in with hundreds of people watching you, right?
every
And
day.
so Tony Robbins says this too. He said, it comes down to money, and like, even he talks about philanthropy. He's like, hey, if you're down and out and you can't give someone $10, you see the whole, well, I'm gonna give back when I'm making a certain amount of money, or I'm gonna do this when I get here. Well, if you're not doing it right now where you're at, you're
Mhm.
probably not going to do it then,
Yeah,
right? Or when you get there.
yeah,
Just because you get to this destination doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're this different. But the habits have to start now. Back to
exactly.
habits and
Okay,
identity.
yeah, because
And
we
so, yeah,
exactly.
who are you when no one is watching right now? Like, you're crying because you get 5 people watching you on an Instagram live. Those 5 people maybe really need your help.
Yeah,
Give your all to those 5, because
yes,
sooner rather than later it's going to be 50, then
and they
it's going
need
to be 100, then
yeah.
it's going to be 500, then you're going to have a podcast like Anthony where
Hey.
you're reaching millions, and you're going to be so happy that you started with nothing, right? And so
Okay.
it's who are you being?
Yeah, I had this podcast I started years ago. It wasn't a podcast, like a video I do. So I was like, I wanted to get this realm. I couldn't speak clearly and thoroughly and thought without stumbling and ums and ahs. Like, how do I do that? So I'm gonna start sharing a video, 90
Mhm.
seconds, called a nightly 90. And I did 1,333 straight days, 3.65 years without missing one. And it's actually what I call dark work. It's something that I work in the element of identity. It's what you do in the dark that shines in the light. It's who you are. And when I have a
Mm,
mentality of I've done too much in the dark, you to take what's mine in the light, there's this guttural
mm,
connection to I've made investments. I'm getting a return, right? And that's what you're talking about. It's that consistency, that discipline, not to the emotion that comes from getting the views, but the discipline to the connection of who you're serving and who you want to become in the long run. So you have to do the dark work or you'll never
mm,
shine in the light.
that's powerful. I love that. Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
We've all done it, unseen,
Yeah.
unsexy, sometimes
Yeah.
unsupported by people that love you. You
Yeah.
do it though, and then you got
You
to
do
prove
it.
to them over time. They're like, "Ah, you're not that person." The first time, like, "Why are you doing that?" The second time, like, "You still doing it?" Third time, by the sixth time, they're
Mhm.
like, "Hey, can I get a job?" Like, "Hey, it's this
Yeah,
weird dynamic that happens
it
only
is.
by those who stay in the pocket long enough.
I love that. Oh, such great
Yeah,
examples.
man, it's a
Mm.
journey. We're coming towards the end, and this is actually one of the fastest podcasts in my
That was
feeling
like
in this
quick.
category.
Yeah.
Just chatting with you. This is good.
Yeah.
It's also the first one I did standing up. I'm like, I'm gonna stand up, and I feel good. I like this. This is
I
enjoyable.
love it.
Uh,
Yes.
I usually end with a singular question, and you can take it wherever you want to take it.
Mhm.
But before I get to that question, I would love to know where I can send people to interact with you, and what kind of person is the best person for you to serve.
Yeah. Oh, I jam with women. Women who want to do big things, who want to, get out of their own way and they want to build that business or wellness that they really desire. But I hang out a lot on Instagram. So just my first and last name at Felicia Romero. I got on TikTok last year. So
Hey,
I've been showing up on TikTok, having fun creating content over there. I also have a podcast called the Hi Felicia podcast instead of the Bye Felicia. So Hi Felicia
smart.
podcast.
Well
And
done.
yeah, I hang out there on Instagram quite a bit. So you can, shoot me DMs, and I have a lot of free access, free content there as well that you can download that will help you in your business.
I like it. I like it. You guys go check it out. Hi, Felicia. That's pretty funny. I like that. Like this is
Yeah.
awe shift, right? It's this unique point. And you don't forget that. All right, here's a final
Yeah.
question. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
Mm. What promise did God make to the world when he created me? I believe that promise was to be generous, be kind, and pour belief into people who don't believe in themselves. And I think that's why coaching comes so naturally for me. I knew I wanted to be a coach when I was in college doing the lawyer route. So yeah, yeah,
It's a good one. I like it.
yeah,
Pour it in because I've always been a proponent of when you don't have joy, you must borrow it, which means you go
yeah,
find somebody who has something to give. You take it, but you don't keep it forever. You give it to somebody
yeah.
else. But yeah,
Yes.
pour it out.
And I
Pour it
do
out.
love that I'm generous. I'm a very generous person, and I love that about myself.
Yeah.
Whether it's a thoughtful gift or
Yeah.
a simple text, reach out text like, "Hey, how are you
Yeah.
doing today? Hope you're well." Like I love that, and I think I got that from my mom. So
It's
yeah.
awesome. You got something else that just came to my attention as you did it, and it's something that few people can do. So I'm gonna give you a big kudos for this.
Yay.
I at one point somebody was saying like you have to be able to own your greatness, but not in an arrogant way. So when you can be able to say to somebody, "I'm awesome," but not make them feel bad, but feel inspired, you're in a
Mhm.
special place. So for you to say, "I love this about me that I'm generous," that's a very unique, interesting thing, and it poked my heart. As
Mm.
I'm like, she gets it. She's in a good space. So
Oh,
I
thank
love that you
you.
can express it that way. It's not normal, and it's a good not
Yeah.
normal. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, very welcome. Thank you for hanging out with us too. And then all you listening, thank you guys for being here. You could have been anywhere else watching, I don't know, cat videos and knitting socks and doing weird things, but you came to hang with us. So we appreciate that. And this episode was chock full of great things. We talked about being okay to fail, which is a big, big piece of it. I love you. But something you said earlier is you have to kind of not just be the highlight reel. So if you're trying to serve people, share the things that connect to the heart. That's where people get to know you and love you to where they'll fight for you and be your advocate as they work with you. So share those things that you're
Mhm.
scared to share. It's a big piece of it. Claim my desire. I think that was pretty cool as I go out and get that thing. And then your connect, community, wealth, freedom, and fun. Those five tenets, so to speak,
Yes.
are beautiful. So you guys got to go apply
Mm.
these things. So hey, share the episode. If somebody you know can benefit from what you just heard, share it with them directly or put it out into the big ether internet of the world so people can just maybe pick it up on accident because they just happen to see you post it. But please do us a favor also, rate and review the episode. That's it. As always, make the most of your shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Felicia Romero signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.